Now, when we're deciding to determine if two figures are congruent, there's a few things you have to check. First thing you have to do is make sure all angles are congruent and all sides are congruent. For two figures to be congruent, both of these must be true. So when we start, let's start looking at our figure here. We have the measure of angles ACB is 38.62 and 38.59. We'll call it close enough. And we'll call angle AC congruent to angle D. Angle A is 51.38, 51.41. So it appears that angle E is congruent to angle A. Look at angle B and angle F, both 90 degrees. These are also congruent. Looking at our sides, CA 6.4 centimeters, DE 6.6, those sides are congruent. AB is 4 centimeters, FE is 3.97, we'll call those two congruent. And lastly, a measure of CB is 5 centimeters, DF 4.97. Here's our two figures are congruent. Now when we want to label them, we know that angle C is congruent to angle D. We have angle A is congruent to angle E. Angle B is also congruent to angle F. We have segment CA congruent to segment DE. We have segment BC congruent to segment DF. And lastly, we have segment AB congruent to segment EF. So when we decide to label our triangle congruencies, we must start out with, we'll start with the first triangle and call it triangle ABC, and it must be congruent to go by vertices. We must, angle A is congruent to angle E, so it must be congruent to triangle E. B is congruent to angle F, so it must be EF, and C is congruent to angle D, so it must be triangle EFD.